Hey guys, this is going to show you how to use the graphing utility on your TI NSpire so that you can solve some of the equations and find solutions to some of the questions that are going to be on your Algebra 1 STAR exam. There were actually 17 questions on the 2019 release STAR, which is what you're looking at, that actually could have been solved using the calculator graphing utility. So I'm going to actually show you some basics here. So we're just going to cover some basics. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to graph just a basic linear equation. And if you remember, linear equation looks like this: y equals mx plus b. So anything in that particular format is a linear equation. So I'm going to go over here, and there's three ways you can get to the graph. You can do new and choose add graphs, or you can click on graph, or you can click on new and you can do add graphs. So there's three ways you can do it. So I'm in the graphing utility right now, and I'm going to give you an equation, 4x minus 8. That is a linear equation. Remember, to get to your calculator on your computer, hit your startup menu, scroll down until you see TI NSpire, and open up the app. That's how you get to this calculator window that I'm in right now. And you can alter your view. You can do only the handheld view, the handheld full calculator with the window in there, or you can actually do the keypad. I'm going to do this so you can see the keypad more clearly. All right, once you've got that entered, you're going to hit enter. And remember, f of x is another word for function of x. Y is f of x. They are one in the same. A function, to simplify it for you, remember, is any operation where one input generates exactly one output. When you put your money into the vending machine processes your money. It only gives you one soda back or one drink. One input, one amount of money, one output, one soda. So that's what a function does. X is your domain or your input values. X is what you plug into the function. So you plug your x's or your domain values into the function. Your function does the operations on it, and then it spits out the y value or the range, which is your f of x. So that's basically all a function is. F of x, don't let that notation scare you. It just means it's a function of x. You're putting x in as an input, the domain, and you're getting a value as an output, a y value, which is the range. So let's look at what you can do once you have this graphed. The first thing is, what if you want to find the x-intercept? We already know the y-intercept, right? Because in y equals mx plus b, that's your y-intercept right there. B is your y-intercept, okay? So we know exactly where it's going to cross the y-axis. We had to know that to enter the equation. So let's find out where it crosses the x-axis. This is commonly called a zero. You use that term with quadratics, and more commonly with quadratics and other types of complex functions. But where does it cross the x-axis? So if you go to your menu, you can analyze the graph. And there's this little thing called zero. A zero is where it crosses the x-axis. Why is that called a zero? Because that is where the function is equal to 0. That is where y is at 0. So what it's going to do is give you this dotted line. Now, I know it crosses right there. So I have to tell the calculator what range to search in. So I'm going to set up a range. I can go all the way over here if I want. I can go here. As long as this, where it is, my 0, is between the two lines. So you're going to establish the lower one, and you're going to drag it over, and you see where it pops up 0? It's showing you've got the 0. There it is, 2, 0. So that's where your value crosses the x-axis. That's called a 0. If you want to look at other things that you can do with this function, you can do trace. You can do graph trace. It's going to give you this little spider looking guy. And you use the keypad left and right to move it. So if you look at the keypad, you can see where it's turning red. I can move along that line using the trace function. Now notice the trace function will also take me to the y-intercept. Do you see the difference between the x-intercept and the y-intercept? The y-intercept is where the x value is 0. There's no left or right movement. It's right on the y-axis. The x value, the x-intercept, which is the 0, is where the x-axis is intersected, and we don't have a up or down. We just have a left or right. So your 0 is 2, your y-intercept is -8. Now let's look at a quadratic. So we're going to be looking at question number 4 over here and evaluating it, but I want to just look at the equation itself first. So I'm going to clear my graph. I'm going to go to the menu, or I'm going to go to home screen, and I'm going to click new. I don't want to save this. I'm going to do a new graph. So my graph now is going to be x. I'm going to graph this one right here so you can see it. I'm going to graph this equation. So I'm going to type in x. Now for squared, the squared key is right here. So that's x squared plus 15x minus 54. This is a quadratic, which to you looks like a parabola. I'm going to hit enter, and you'll notice that I cannot see it. I can't see it. So I'm going to hit menu, and I'm going to go to the window zoom tool. The first thing I'm going to do is do zoom to fit. That's one of the best things you can do. It's going to try to fit your graph into your window. Okay, so I still can't quite see what I want to see. I know it's a parabola, and I know that there's going to be another place that this changes direction and goes back up. So I'm going to go to menu, I'm going to go to window and zoom, and I'm going to choose the zoom out tool. Once you do this, be careful, don't go crazy with your clicking. You're going to click one at a time until you can see the shape of your graph. That's good enough. Then to get out of this zoom tool, you're going to hit escape. If you don't hit escape, you're going to have that little magnifying glass, and it's going to keep zooming out and zooming out and zooming out and driving you crazy. So now I've got this quadratic graph. Well, I want to know the zeros of this. What are the zeros? What are the solutions? Basically, when you have a quadratic, the zeros are also considered the solutions to the equation. Well, let's go to menu. Let's go to analyze graph, and let's do zeros. Now we have 2 zeros here. So let's do one at a time. I know that the 1, 0 is about right here, so I'm going to set my boundaries there. And it shows you there's a 0. Boom. So your first 0 is at -18. Where's your next 0? Well, let's do menu, analyze graph, and my other one's over here. So let's set another set of boundaries from here to here. There's my other 0. Now you have both of your zeros. Here's the cool thing about that. Remember when you do a quadratic equation, when you do it in factored form, the factored form is actually representing your zeros. So if I were to factor this, and let's use g of x because that's what they're using, g of x would equal x, and it's going to be plus 18, even though the 0 is at -18. Why is that? Because remember, we're looking for what we could plug into the equation to make it a 0. Well, how do I make something plus 18 0? I make it negative. And then my other 0, since it's at +3, would be x minus 3. So the correct answer is G. So that's how you find the zeros of a quadratic function. Now let's say you forget how to find the zeros and you come up on a problem like 4. 4 is asking which one of these multiple choice answers, we've established it's G already, we know it's going to be this one. Let's say you didn't know how to do that. Which one of these is going to be equal or equivalent to this one? That's where you're going to go back into the graphing utility. You're going to hit menu, graph, and function, and you're going to start graphing all of these and see which one actually lines up on top of this one. So let's try F. If I do F, x plus 9 times x minus 6, and I hit enter, is that the same graph? No, you can clearly see g of x equals x plus 9 times x minus 6, answer choice F, is not the same as my original. So I can scratch this one out. We've already done G, so let's actually go and look at some other ones. So I'm going to go to graph function. Let's try out H. We already know the answer is G, so just let's play dumb and pretend like we don't know it. So x minus 9, x plus 6. Is that one the same as the blue one, the original? Nope. You can tell those are completely different. So let's try one more time. Let's graph a function, and let's graph answer choice J. X minus 18, x plus 3, which, by the way, was the most commonly chosen incorrect answer because people saw the negative 18 for the 0 and the 3 and just plugged it in that way. Remember, when you plug the zeros back in, you have to make it opposite. So if I hit enter, that graph is not the same. So it has to be G. And you'll see if I enter G, I go graph function, and I enter G, which is x plus 18 times x minus 3. It pops up right on top of that blue graph, my original. So I know those guys are exactly the same. So that's just a quick basic breakdown on how you can use the quadratics.